All right, welcome to episode 2 of Bull in the Basement. So I kicked this thing off about a month ago. I had the Wing King Drew Cerza on, and I did it. And then I went on vacation for a couple of weeks. And ever since then, people are like, dude, that was great. When are you doing the next one? And finally, here we are with episode 2 of Bull in the Basement. And it's so cool because the young lady on, let's see, if you're looking at this, I guess it would be on your left because it's my left or well, whatever. Jen Brazill. So she and I met a couple of years ago. She is the creator and producer of Borderland. Of course, sadly didn't happen last year, but happens in the late summer, early fall every year at Knox Farm State Park. It's an incredible festival. We're going to get into a lot of detail about that. We met for the first time a couple of years ago as we were doing a local band contest. And by the way, shout out Uncle Ben's Remedy, who made this year's bill, right?
Yes.
Which is great.
Yeah, that was your vote. Yeah.
Right. Well deserved.
Yes.
Shout out Two Hills Reloaded. Shout out Greg Klima. I mean, great people. And it was a lot of fun. So Jen Brazill and I met with Josh Holtzman from 26 Productions. He's killing it. And Ironworks and Jeff Myers from the Buffalo News. And we have been talking about ever since for the last 2 years, hey, let's do this music podcast together. And everyone's crazy with COVID. And you would have thought that by now this would have happened. But of course it didn't because we're all nuts. So finally, you and I are getting to do this. And it's so exciting because I know how proud you are of Borderland. It is a tremendous festival. It is the perfect spot and the perfect time of year. And listen, we talked before we started rolling here and recording about how, you're jamming basically 2 years into 2 months in terms of preparation. I'm so happy to see it back. And I'm sure you're so happy to see not only your festival back and concerts as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you, and I appreciate you being here. We did talk about podcasting for like 2 years, and I'm so non-tech savvy that never got it together. So I'm so glad that you did. Thanks for that.
Well, I'm this much more tech savvy than you are that I was able to do this. In fact,
you're making it happen.
Well, yeah. Here's the crazy thing. So I actually have one of these fluorescent donut lights that everybody says you have to get because it makes you look better and it makes you glow and shine. It is the most annoying thing because all I do is see stars for the 15 minutes after this thing is done. And it's the size of a donut. Like I could rip this thing off and eat it right now.
You are glowing though.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm glowing because it's hot out.
One of the things too that I almost didn't recognize you because you're not wearing your lid.
I know. It was a big debate. I have it sitting next to me. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, I always have a hat of some version. And today I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to go hat free. And I feel very self-conscious about it. But
you're doing great. I'm the same way. I have a hat collection. I used to have 150 hats or something. I'm probably down a purge to maybe like 40 or something at this point. But yeah, I used to collect hats and wear hats all the time. And maybe I should. I mean, I'm a little challenged at this point in my life. But anyway.
No, I am the same. Everywhere I go, I grab a hat. Like I can't walk into a store without buying a hat. It's
right?
Just, it's a thing.
It's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Hey, are you an Olympic person?
I am usually. I haven't been watching this year because I've been so busy working. So I'm behind. But are you?
You know what? I am, and it's so weird to me. Like I don't know. You're East Aurora, and are you familiar with or know Matt Anderson at all? I mean, he's an absolute Olympic stud from our neighborhood, right? I don't know if you know him at all, but
not personally, no.
But, okay.
Yeah.
So following him and the other Western New Yorkers, and then I'm thinking to myself, and you know me, aside from being a music guy, I'm a sports guy. I love sports, but I never watch gymnastics or volleyball or swimming or diving or skateboarding or rock climbing or most of the other sports, judo. I mean, I'm just throwing random sports in the Olympics out. Not only do I not play them or don't even try to, because I'm old and frail and not very limber. Yeah. I don't work out. All of these problems, but we all are so, I don't know if it's patriotism or what it is, but all of us are so drawn to the Olympics every 4 years. And it's something that's just an amazing, crazy phenomenon.
I think part of it, and for me, well, first, my sports for the summer are skateboarding and surfing, and I think it's because I lived on the West Coast for so long. But I love it. I love watching them skate and surf. But I think it's because these athletes, everybody that makes the Olympics just works so hard. They dedicate their entire life to it. And, it's like, you have to respect that. And it's this next level of athleticism.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Which is interesting too, because think about it. That's what musicians do. And we're going to talk a lot about music throughout this episode of Bull in the Basement. It's Jennifer Brazill. It's 2 N's in Jennifer, 2 L's in Brazil.
Yes.
JenniferBrazill.com if you want to check out her website. It's super cool. She runs and has created Borderland, which is phenomenal. The date, by the way, of the show, September 18 and 19, Jason Isbell, Revivalists. Again, I give a shout out to Folk Faces. I love Tyler and what those guys do locally. And you got to tell me about, because I know nothing about this band. Please tell me about Pigeons Playing Ping Pong.
I knew you were going to say that. Yes. Like, funniest name ever. And at one point in my career, I was like, I don't know if I could book a band with that name. I was like really concerned about it. And then cut to a couple years later, and they're just killing it in the jam scene. They're a jam band. They, at this point in time, they played Buffalo a bunch. And at this point in time, they could sell out almost 3 nights at Town Ballroom.
Wow.
Sell out, pre-sale, like that. So to me, I was like, okay, like I got to get these guys. And they also wanted to kind of like play at a bigger platform in an outside venue. So it was the perfect fit this year because they're at the point in their career that they can have a high spot on our bill. And they also sell tickets. And I also was really excited for them because they're so fun. They're a different version of jam. They're like poppy jam. Like their songs are like so upbeat and fun. And so I'm really stoked about them. You'll like it.
I can't wait to see
Not like usually jam, it's like fun dance, get stoked jam.
Cool. Borderlandfestival.com for all your information. Who's playing, when, how you get tickets, all of the things going on at the festival. Knox Farm State Park. You guys transform it into this great outdoor concert venue. It's so awesome. You use the old stables and you have food and artisan vendors and obviously the music, and it's phenomenal and everybody should go. And I know, listen, it competes kind of sort of with football in the fall, but you can do both. Trust me.
Well, every year I wait because the NFL drops the lineup so late and I can't wait to book my festival until they do it. And so I literally sit and just pray mantras like, please be an away game, please be an away game. And 2 years ago in 2019, we actually ended up going up against the home opener, which was like, but we still killed it and we had a great crowd and we worked, like it was still amazing. But this year the Bills are away in Miami. So we were stoked about that. And then I'm a big Bills fan. I'm a season ticket holder, actually took over my dad's tickets after he's had them for 47 years.
Wow.
And then, and so he's kind of handed them down to me now that I live back in Buffalo. So I'm like a big Bills fan. So of course, I'm like, okay, well, we have to create an experience on site at the festival that merges the football and the music. So that's what we're doing. And there's going to be a lot more details coming out about that and some special guests, but we're going to definitely
celebrate the Bills. Yeah.
Celebrate the Bills.
100%. 100%. That'll be great.
Yes. Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but did you come back home? Because we're going to get into your life and your background, because you lived all over the place. You lived on both coasts. You lived in Costa Rica for a while, and you'll have to explain that to me. But did you come back home to East Aurora solely to do this festival? I mean, was this sort of like a dream of yours to come home and do this and settle here and do this here?
Yeah, good question. I think that, yes, I moved out to San Francisco right after college when I was like 22. A bunch of my friends actually from East Aurora, the whole crew of us moved out there together. And then we all ended up living on the same street for 10 years. Like we couldn't, so it's like we took East Aurora and Buffalo to San Francisco. So that was super cool. And I always, my entire family lives in Buffalo still, everybody, cousins, aunts, uncles, parents, and I'm 5 generationally rooted East Aurora. We go 5 generations deep in East Aurora. So I always knew that I would be back on some level and in some way. And I always knew I wanted to do something in Buffalo. I wanted to create an event or do something music related. I just didn't I didn't ever really know what it was going to be. And I also didn't expect for it to land in East Aurora at Knox Park. I thought of Buffalo, I thought the city, and it just turned out the venue was so perfect for this. And it just kind of aligned. And so the timing of it. So yeah, in a lot of ways, I did move back just to start Borderland, but I always knew in the back of my mind I would be back. So it's a combination.
I want to get more into Borderland in a second, but let me ask you about San Francisco. Obviously, you go there.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was discussion between you and all of your friends. Hey, let's all go to San Francisco.
Yeah.
I feel bad because I've been to San Francisco like 3 different times. 2 when I worked with the Bills for Bills games, so it was pretty much in and out. And another time I was there with a big group of people celebrating a birthday, doing Napa and Sonoma and some of the national parks, and literally spent about 6 hours in San Francisco doing all the sort of touristy stuff, right? So I never got to feel the feel of the scene, which I'm sure you embraced. And, what a history between Haight-Ashbury and Fillmore West and the Dead and all of that based on all the things you do. But tell me why San Francisco was so inspirational to you in sort of your growth and adulthood to doing what you do now.
Pretty much everything. It contributed to everything that I'm doing now. And along with Dave Matthews Band, which I know we'll talk about later, the combination of that really like kind of set the stage for what I do for sure. But San Francisco, I was just so lucky, and I don't want to like throw my age on this, but like I was there in the 90s and late into the 2000s. And so it was still very colorful. And, it was before it got really .com techie and more expensive. And so I still feel like I got to live there during this I lived there in my 20s. So I was like super young and got to be out and about and go out as much as possible in this big, beautiful, colorful city. And coming from Buffalo, it was so different during the 90s. It was so we didn't have the resurgence here yet that we have now. So it was like coming from here to there, I was like, whoa, Technicolor, like my mind just blew out. I was like, what is this place? And so my whole career was basically influenced by living in San Francisco, because my entire social life has revolved around going to see live music. So we went to like the Fillmore and Great American Music Hall and the Warfield and all the legendary places that all the bands we know, the Dead, Jefferson Starship, all the bands like Janis Joplin, they all hailed out of San Francisco. And it's a real grassroots, authentic music movement. And I got heavily influenced by that. And because I went to see music all the time out there, I ended up becoming friends with all the venue owners, especially the Fillmore, the guys that run the Fillmore. At the time, Live Nation took over the Fillmore now. But at the time, it was still grassroots, run by Bill Graham Presents.
Yeah.
That's an entire podcast on its own,
Sure.
But so then I became friends with like the people that managed the Grateful Dead and that whole community out there, the old school OG, like all the people that did that originally became my mentors. And I got to like go to their parties and their shows and have conversations, and I learned from them. And that I'm a big Grateful Dead head, and I kind of base a lot of what I do with my events off of the way they modeled things with the community, the art, the culture, the kindness of the vibes, So I feel like that era of time that I lived in San Francisco really set the stage for what I wanted to create.
I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a contemporary hippie.
I like that.
I mean, throughout politics aside, music, vibe, community, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say. And that leads me into my next question. So let's get back to Borderland.
Yeah.
How would you describe the music? Because you mentioned jam, right? But there's bluegrass, Americana, folk. I mean, how would you, or how do you describe to people what they're going to see and hear when they come to the festival?
So the brand originally started, kind of under the vibe of Americana, and it's taken. This is our third year, our third lineup, and it's taken a little curve of like Americana, bluegrass, country, jam. Like last year it was a little more jam, or 2019 it ended up being a little more jammy, bluegrassy with Government Mule and Keller Williams and the guys from the Great Oteil, from the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead. He was, you know, Oteil Burridge. And then this year, and that kind of plays into what I know you want to talk about too, is like how you book a festival. This year it's curated a little bit more Americana / country. So, but that also is because when you start booking bands, you find out who's available and not available. So that could change your vision a little bit. So I think overall, long answer to your question, it's I would describe us as Americana, bluegrass, grassroots, country.
Chill.
Yeah. Jam. Yeah. All of it.
Total chill. Like you guys could totally do like the headphone disco or whatever the hell they call it, and silent disco. Yeah, you guys could totally do that, and it would be the same. You'd see the same body motions. You'd see the same smiles. Like you do the exact same thing with that music. Sans actual people live performing it. That's what the feel would be like. And I can only say that based on my experience back in 19 of what I saw, but knowing the bands that are playing, I totally get the vibe. And the way it's set up, again, it's all outdoors. You bring a lawn chair, right? You get your pack of people, your lawn chair, your blanket, and you just chill and relax and have some wine, have some beer, whatever, some food. You meet new people. I mean, you talk about community. I mean, this is the ultimate. East Aurora and Knox Farm State Park becomes sort of Buffalo into this little teeny tiny spot. It's pretty cool the way it works.
Yes. Well, thank you for describing it like that. That's what we try to create for sure. We have, you know, Knox Park is a 600-acre park. We take up about 12 acres of that. So we have a lot of space we could spread out. So I think people, especially this year, I think it's like nice people have their space. You're not crammed in and people don't feel like you're at this festival where you're like being shoved around, and it's super family friendly. And you know, kids 10 and under are free, so the parents can bring their kids, hang out. It's an environment where people are like feel comfortable and stoked, and you know, it's good vibes. Like the music, that's my thing when I book a lineup. I'm like all about good vibes. Like I want the music to be upbeat, happy, fast, positive, like really super fun. And I want that kind of like resonates with all ages. Like my parents are in their 70s, they come and they love it. And they're curmudgeons, you know, like they're like, come on, what is this? And then they get there, they're like, oh, I love this.
Great, heavily underused word. Well done. Well done. Yeah. So you brought up a couple of things that I thought were interesting. Let's start with family. And you've talked about that a lot here in our few minutes together with Jen Brazill. She is the creator and founder and producer of Borderland, September 18 and 19 at Knox Farm State Park. Jason Isbell, Revivalists, and more are playing. You can go to borderlandfestival.com for more information. You came home for your family. How much did your family influence you? I mean, I know, listen, my mom was not a big music person, but I recall vividly the albums she had, and there was only a few, on her big stack stereo system that we bought her for Christmas one year, me and my 3 younger brothers, with, you know, like the Stylistics and Saturday Night Fever, but there was also Kenny Rogers and there was Neil Diamond. So there was that. And then there's driving to church in the car with the AM radio on, and what's now yacht rock is what I grew up listening to, right?
Yeah.
So for you, what was, you know, how much play did your parents and your family have with how you developed, and your friends, obviously, and how you developed what you like?
I would say for music, when I was younger with my parents, I was heavily influenced by my dad's, they weren't musicians, but my dad was always listening to things like the Beach Boys, the Kingston Trio. He loves Asleep at the Wheel that comes here all the time. I remember having a poster of the Beach Boys on my wall when I was little, and I was like, it was a concert with all these people, and it was California, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go there and like do that with those people, you know? And so that musically, like I always had those bands in my head, but I think the place that I got most heavily influenced on the what I ended up doing was my boyfriend in high school at the time was a Deadhead. The Grateful Dead was still alive and touring, and with Jerry, and he like would take off and go on these tours, and I couldn't understand what he was doing. I was so mad about it. And so eventually I kind of caught on and started listening to the music. And so he probably was my biggest influence, getting me introduced to the music that I ended up kind of following out to the West Coast.
With Jennifer Brazill talking about Borderlands, so we know about your background. We know a little bit now about what Borderland is all about for people that didn't know about it, going into this Q&A. So you are a festival creator, producer, event creator, producer. I think a lot of people just kind of assume that concerts just happen, right? So somebody puts a call into a band. Hey, can you do fill in the blank in Buffalo? No. Well, how about this date? Okay, let me check. Then they get back. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, we'll book the date and we're going to get some stages and some sound equipment, and we'll call a few food people and some vendors, and we'll put tickets on sale, and that's it. Right. I think that's it's that was sort of the cliff notes, but my gosh, so much more goes into it beyond, publicity and legal and all of that. Kind of break down what goes into the preparation of putting together a concert event. You've done a lot of them. You did the Peter Tosh Music Festival, which is super cool. I love reggae. You did a big Colorado Music Festival for a long time out there, and now you're doing Borderland here. So, and you work with obviously Dave Matthews, as we mentioned, on his tour for years. So talk a little bit about what goes into setting up a tour, being part of a tour, setting up a festival like you've done here in Buffalo and East Aurora.
Oh, Bull, that could take all day.
It's a loaded question. I know. You're right.
There's so many things. Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, it's all of that. It's basically like with a tour and a festival are kind of very different logistically, because with a festival, you basically have a blank canvas and you paint it, and you create it and you build it. And a lot of places you come in and it's like you start with an empty space and then you pop up a whole city pretty much.
Yep.
And so leading up to that, it takes a good year and a half to plan it in terms of getting, like you said, permits, talking to the state, the county, the health departments, the insurance, the licensing, the legal, the all of that first, to make sure, going in front of town boards and state boards and talking and presenting yourself and creating parking plans and stressed out.
Anyone watching this is like, I don't know if I want to get into this business.
Yeah, yes, you might not. It's like, yeah, and no, it's that's all preliminary stuff you do before you even really start to book the bands, because until you know that you have all your permitting straight, you can't really do a festival. So
right.
That's all like a ton of legwork ahead of time. And then you start reaching out to booking. You get a vision of the bands that you want, like we just talked about, the vibe, and then you start reaching out to booking agents and seeing who's available and who's routing and touring, and then you start grabbing bands. And then
wait, let me stop you real quick.
Yeah,
because that's another thing a lot of people don't think about, just regular concert goer, is that routing is so important. Forget about the date, forget about, hey, I really want to fill in the blank band, I really want to play at this Borderland, it's a great festival, but we're to be in Seattle on that, 2 days before. We can't travel cross country. So routing, like, you need to get a band that was in Pittsburgh 2 days before, or a day before, or Cleveland 2 days before, or Rochester, right? That is really important, and what a lot of people probably don't even understand in terms of building something like this.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And it's interesting that you said Seattle, because a funny story, and not really that funny, but it's a first year of the festival, I was obsessed with John Prine, and who is now passed away. And I was like, I have to get John Prine. He's my hero. And he's the perfect Americana king, and he was in Seattle the night before. And they wanted to really do it, but he was older and couldn't do the red eye, like the whole thing, the red eye flight out to the West Coast. So I literally looked into renting him a private jet. I was like, I'm going to pay $30,000, which I didn't have, but I wanted him so bad that I almost chartered a jet for John Prine. But I didn't do it because my money people, my business manager is like, no, you're not doing that. But then he passed away, and he didn't play Borderland, which, that was a challenge.
And
But
but I was going to say that, by the way, for a promoter too, like you, is you have an idea, sort of a wish list. And I'm certain there's some rejection that comes with what you do, which is, it can be a big bummer because you're like, man, I really want this band. You have a checklist of people that you want, obviously, and either they're too expensive or they're not around, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time is how it works.
I always say equate booking the lineup to dating, where you get dumped like every other day. It's like a breakup, and then you're like heartbroken for that 24 hours, and you're like, I can't believe I lost that. Because sometimes they become so close, like you're like, oh, everything's lined up, and they're like, yes, we're gonna accept your offer, we're totally doing it, and then so you get your hopes up, and then the very next day you get the message that, oh, we got another offer of more money, or this band member has a wedding or something, and you're like, oh, stake through the heart, and then you're depressed for 2 days, and then so yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster.
You got some power players on the bill this year, though, man. Jason Isbell and Revivalist are both really solid, really popular performers. You mentioned some of the other bands, and it's going to be terrific on the 18th and 19th of September for Borderland, borderlandfestival.com for more information. Jennifer Brazill's with us. 2 N's, 2 L's in Brazil.com is her website if you want to see everything she does. And borderlandfestival.com at Knox Farm State Park in East Aurora on the 18th and 19th. So now it's time for Dave Matthews.
Yeah.
How did you get in? And I went through a very significant Dave Matthews phase in my life where probably for about, now I've never been Deadhead level. I've never toured to see anybody. I have some of my favorite bands. A lot of people know this would be bands like Pearl Jam, Genesis, The Police. I'll throw Dave in for a time. It was certainly probably an 8 to 10 year phase.
Great band.
Probably like mid 90s to maybe mid 2000, right? I remember his performance at Woodstock 99. I was there. And it was phenomenal. Like, so he's a guy to me who appears to be the kind of guy that you could just shotgun a beer with and have conversation all night long. So first of all, tell me how you got in with him, what you did with Dave Matthews. And if you would think up, and we didn't prep you for this, but try and think of a story that you can share with us that is sort of friendly and maybe that no one's ever heard about Dave Matthews.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Well, yes, so like I said, when I was in San Francisco is kind of when I made a lot of relationships and connections with people just from going out and seeing music all the time. And I became really good friends with this man. His name's Corin Capshaw. Now he's kind of like a music Mongol in the industry. He manages a company called Red Light Management, and it has like Chris Stapleton, Fish, like you name it. Yeah. He had Alicia Keys, like very big. And he managed Dave Matthews from the age that Dave was 19 years old. He grabbed Dave and he's like, something's here. And so he became my mentor and my friend, and he brought me into his company. And at the time, it was basically just Dave Matthews Band and a couple other bands. Now it's blown up to be 7 cities, a massive entity. And I was in there and working under Dave and the crew when it was still very grassroots and small family. So everybody knew each other, which was super cool because I always equate it to going to grad school. Like I went to grad school with Dave Matthews Band, which is totally true. And I learned under the coolest people, and just, the way Dave is exactly what you said. He's the chillest, coolest, nicest, totally weird and quirky, artist to the core, but the kindest person. And he loves his shotgun beers and whiskey. So perfect.
So
then I don't know now, maybe, but
right.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is right when we're done with this, you're going to scroll through your names in your phone there, and here's Dave, and we're going to put him in contact with Bull. We're going to do the same exact thing, and he and Bull are going to shotgun a beer together. Perfect.
Well, he's on the West Coast. Well, actually, I don't know. I think they're on tour already.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's everything you said. He's the coolest. Like, He's just the coolest. And he's so nice. And one thing I will say about them is they take care of their crew. Like the entire crew that they have now, 25 years later, is the crew that started with them. From the lighting guy to the sound guy to the tour caterer, you know, like they made everybody a part of the team, and they've all stayed together over the years. So.
Let me tell you something. I took drum lessons in 5th and 6th grade, and I am perhaps the best air drummer on the planet. Carter Beauford for me. Yeah. Oh my God, is that guy good?
He's insane.
He's ridiculous.
Insane. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
So like the whole thing was like I know that they base a lot of the show on Carter. Like they used to check in with him first. They're like, all right, how you doing, Carter, tonight? Because like you're the backbone of this.
Yeah.
You know?
You're the engine. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's super cool. That you had that experience for sure. And we're able to work so closely. So the most important question about Dave Matthews for you is, were you on the poop plane?
It was a bus.
In Chicago, right?
No, luckily I was not, but I did work there at the time that happened. So I watched the press junket. It was, yeah.
So for people that don't know, just Google Dave Matthews poop bus, and you'll find out what we're talking about.
None of the band members were on that bus, actually. That's
and how about that? It's always the crew, the roadies, the grunts that get blamed for everything.
It happened.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Hey, before we let you go, you gotta share with everyone watching your ginger root thing. I know you're just kicking this off on your website, part of what you do. And listen, I hope to not offend you when I say this, but you're crunchy, right? Is that fair? You're kind of crunchy.
I liked contemporary hippie.
Okay, we'll go back to contemporary hippie.
Yeah,
fine.
I like, a little modern edge, maybe.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Fair enough. So anyway, from that comes a lot of responsibility. You've talked a little bit about, the vibe and the community and all of that, but environment is a big thing that you incorporate into your festivals. And now you're kind of work on taking it to a whole different level, right?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, because it is super important to me. And yes, especially with festivals, we at Borderland specifically, all the festivals we've done in the past are heavily based with sustainability efforts. But Borderland specifically, we came in and we realized we're on this beautiful park, and it's like, okay, we need to protect Mother Nature. We need to do everything that we can to offset our footprint. That we are bringing 10,000 people are coming on this park. We need to make sure we're doing this properly. So we had recycling, composting, carbon offsets. We have a huge green team that micro sweeps the property. We ended up getting these awards from New York State and Erie County for our environmental leadership, which was super cool. Because we use no plastics on site. We use only compostable products, no plastics. We have free water stations, so people don't buy plastic water bottles. They can fill up their cups all weekend. So we do, the efforts are above and beyond. I won't go on and on about it, but to me, it's kind of a really super important thing as a responsibility. If we're going to bring that many people together, we need to be aware of the footprint that how we're walking on the earth. And,
for sure.
Yeah.
So if you're going to Borderland, and if you are laying or sitting on a blanket when the show's over and you pick up your blanket, gently take the grass that you basically squashed by sitting or laying or standing on it, and gently lift it back up.
Yes.
Original setting.
Bring a comb with you and just
right.
comb
So good. So good. Hey, but this has been.
I will say really quick on the ginger root thing. I'm taking everything that I've done with my festivals and turning it into a new company to help other festivals and businesses and events, and specifically small businesses, become more sustainable as we go ahead. Because obviously we're seeing that climate change is such a shit show right now, and we all just need to do better. So that's ginger root.
Well, I know I have this tendency to just go on and on and on and on, but in this medium we can, which is great.
Yeah.
You mentioned working small business. I know you have a relationship with 43 North, right?
42 North, yeah.
42 North, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're a partner, and in terms of like marketing and whatnot. And they're based in East Aurora, obviously. So they have a big outlet for a lot of people traffic through there. And yeah, they're a small business, and we have a ton, and we actually work with a lot of small businesses. That's a great point, because we work, we bring in like a lot of different Buffalo breweries, Resurgence breweries. We've had Community Beer Works, Southern Tier. Like we have so many people, Hamburg's coming this year, like
Cool.
all these different breweries, M42 North as well. And then we also have like all the local food trucks. We have arts crafts. We have over 35, 40 arts crafts vendors. Most are local and regional. So our big thing is small business. Like, Buffalo Distilling, Lockhouse Distilling, Oxford Pennant, like you name it, we're bringing them into Borderland. So it's kind of like we're swooping up all the small businesses and the Hatches and Hops, like the axe throwers.
Sure.
They're all going to be at Borderland. So everybody's there. So it's an incubator for supporting small business.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's
sorry, I just rambled on about that.
No, it's all good. I mean, people need to know that this is more than just music, that it's a collaborative effort to, expose people to a lot of different things. And it's going to be a great day. 2 days, actually, September 18th and 19th at a Knox Farm State Park. Even if you're not necessarily into the music that we've described in this piece, I think what Jen said is right. The vibe is super cool. It's just, you're going to meet a lot of new people. It's a good hang. Listen, if you're into mosh pits, probably not your thing. But if you're into just good, solid music that is created, I know some people have an issue with like computer generated music and whatever. Most of what you have on stage, I would submit, I don't know, give me a percentage, is people that are actually playing instruments and not computer generated music. Yeah, 100%. There you go. Yeah. And no knock on computer generated music, because it's certainly an incredible talent and a skill that you need to learn. Yeah. But I personally, I like a guy playing a drum, and I like a guy playing a guitar, and I like a girl playing a fiddle, and I like a girl playing a bass and amps and microphones. Like, I like all that personally. So if you're into that, this is certainly the place to be. So anything else you need to add before we break away?
Just take a plug on to play on top of that. The artists that we have this year, like Jason Isbell, has won 4 Grammys. He's a 4-time Grammy winner. The Infamous String Dusters, they're a bluegrass band. They have a Grammy, Best Bluegrass Band Grammy winners. Molly Tuttle, she's a bluegrass. She's won, the only female to ever win Guitar Player of the Year. Badass shredder. So I mean, Cam, she's a country artist. She's Grammy nominated. I mean, we have some killer, not to throw out all the Grammy things, but come on, it's a Grammy.
Yeah.
So we have some incredible talent, and obviously then we have local Buffalo bands too, but we really try to bring in nationally. We really try to curate this to bring in like the best and real authentic, amazing players and musicians. So we're super stoked.
Well, I know that you are, Borderland's your thing, but I know that your brain is constantly moving and creating and thinking and producing, and you got Ginger Root now. And I am supposing that Borderland will not be the last thing you do here in Western New York, Jennifer Brazill. But in the interim, congratulations on the early success of the festival and the growth of it in just a couple of years. And it should be a great time. I will see you there, September 18th and 19th at Knox Farm. I will absolutely be there. It's going to be a great time. Knox Farm State Park, borderlandfestival.com for all your information. If you want to find out more about Jen and all the things that she's done, all the programs she's working on aside from Borderland, you could do that too at Jennifer 2 N's Brazill with 2 L's.com. It's like the country with an extra L added to it, right? East Aurora's finest, Jennifer Brazill. Thanks for being on Bull in the Basement. Great to see you. Let's do this again.
For sure. Thank you, Bull. Appreciate it.
You bet.